we go.
Hey friends, we're off here again with the Louisville ProActivist report. Back in Nulu again today, and got a very special show for you today. We're going to be talking about ranked choice voting, something that's very important and something we need to push for. With the issues with our current election system and the duopoly situation of, lesser evilism voting, ranked choice voting does away with that. So we're going to get into that today. I've got two special guests with me today, so let me show you guys. On my right here, I have Kensei Carpenter. And on my left, I have John Hicks. You all may have seen John before on the show when he ran for governor. So if you haven't already, when you're done with this, you might want to check out that episode. It was really good. But they're here with a group called Kentuckians for Ranked Choice Voting. And this is a brand new group, and they're trying to get the word out about ranked choice voting and the work that they do. So we're going to get into all that today. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right, so let's just start at the beginning for those who don't know about ranked choice voting. Ken, could you kind of, John, could you kind of explain that for us?
Okay, I'll give it a try, and Ken can chip in if I miss something along the way. But really, ranked choice voting is a relatively small tweak to the way that we hold our elections, but we think it'll have tremendous effects on the general atmosphere of our political atmosphere today, where I think the biggest problem we have is the great polarization, where we're more or less divided into two groups of people that are yelling at each other. Basically, all it involves is when you go to vote, you vote normally like you vote for your first choice, just normally, and that is counted just like in a normal election. But in addition to that, you can vote for your second choice or maybe third choice. And that only comes into play when you've got a close election and no one gets a majority on the first vote count. Doesn't happen all the time, but we know it does happen, and I guess I'm the poster child for that, since I ran for governor year before last in 2019, and I was a libertarian candidate. I only got 2%, but neither Mr. Bevin nor Mr. Beshear got over 50%. They were 49 point something, and so, or 48 point something, I guess. And so people were wondering, well, where did my votes come from, and why did people vote for me instead of for Bevin or Beshear? With ranked choice voting, the people that had voted for me would have expressed a second choice. In addition to me, I would have been eliminated after the first round of voting, and the people the ballots for me then would be recounted using the people's second choice, the voter's second choice, instead of their first choice. And then we would know where those votes came from, and they would be distributed to either Mr. Bevin or Beshear, and there wouldn't be any question about it. This has happened. It happened in quite a number of primaries this past year, the presidential primaries, where a third-party candidate could be considered to be the spoiler. Neither Mr. Trump nor Mr. Biden got a majority, and people were wondering about that. So we think this is a kind of a critical time. We can't let this keep going. We really need to solve this problem, and it amounts to instant runoff voting, or having instant runoffs, except that it really has advantages over separate runoff elections, because you don't have to go back to the polls a second time. So it cuts the cost in half, and so you're going to get better turnout. So people tend to not go back for a runoff unless it's really important, and so you don't get a very good turnout. So it's really much better than regular runoff elections. So what did I miss, Ken?
I would just say that, in the first round, if no one wins the majority of the vote, that is over 50% of the vote, obviously the candidate who lost that round gets eliminated, and that just keeps going until a candidate achieves the majority. And I think that's critical in two ways. One, it ensures better representation because now you're actually representing the majority, whereas in the case you might have a candidate that wins much less, significantly less than 50% of the vote. The other thing is that, I think people make a lot of assumptions, like even in your case, and when you ran for governor, people make assumptions about who people would have voted if they had not voted for you. And they get upset because, okay, it's a wasted vote, you didn't vote for Bashir or you didn't vote for Bevin. And this allows us to actually know, right? We actually can find out how people vote when they're given the ability to rank their vote first, second, or third choice, and so on and so forth. So to me, that's kind of the key distinction, is that candidates have to win the majority, and we get to kind of learn how people vote. People are given the opportunity to vote for their second and third choice, but we get to kind of learn how people feel about candidates, even if they don't get their first choice.
So what attracted you at first, to get involved with this? We'll start with John.
How did I get involved in it?
Yeah, what about this, attracted you to actually want to work on this and make that, I know it was a big part of your governor run, and now you're in Kentuckians for ranked choice voting.
I ran for state rep the year before and also ran on election reform. I've been fascinated by alternative ways of voting since my college days, which is a long time ago. I graduated in '68. And basically, I can thank a couple of my professors for turning me on to it. They suggested I study the electoral system in Europe, the interwar period in Europe, where they were experimenting with different ways of voting. And I discovered proportional representation. I discovered the list system. Along the way, I discovered something called single transferable vote, which is a way of getting proportional representation in an assembly using ranked choice voting. And along the way, that turned me on to ranked choice voting in general. I was convinced, this was back I was convinced at the time that we had to do this. There were a couple of problems. There weren't a lot of computers back in the '60s. Ordinary people, the desktop computer had not been invented, so ordinary people were not familiar with computers. They would not trust computers to count the votes like that, and so it was a very awkward system to do it manually. So I've just been kind of intending all my life to try to promote this, and particularly since the computer revolution and particularly the smartphone revolution, people are a lot more comfortable with computers. At the same time, though, people are also more suspicious. There's more conspiracy theories. So our main problem now is to educate people on how it works, so that they don't have any questions or qualms about the integrity of the system. But I jumped at the chance to run for state rep in 2018 because I was sitting in House District 43 here in Kentucky, which is, some of you may know, Charles Booker's and now Pam Stevenson's district. Is the most gerrymandered, certainly the most gerrymandered district in Kentucky, possibly in the nation. I don't know. It runs all the way from the west end of Kentucky, the Shawnee and Chickasaw neighborhoods along the west edge of the city, along the river, through Portland neighborhood where I live, through downtown where we are now, Butchertown, on out to Zorn Avenue and Indian Hills, and then into St. Matthews. It's just a complete very narrow gerrymandered district, and it was an excellent opportunity to run on election reform, because once we go to stage 2 of election reform, once we get familiar with ranked choice voting, we can go to multi-member districts, and that will do away with the problem of gerrymandering. So I hope to live to see that day where we can look at our legislature, our Congress, and it will represent a cross-section of the public and not just two groups of people hating on each other. Did I answer that question? Well, how did I get interested in it? Yeah, I think that's how.
And what about you, Ken? What got you
My
involved?
story is pretty basic. I think a lot of people share the same sentiment, is that for years, as a young voter, I've watched the divide in our nation. It almost runs a 50-50 split, and I've always questioned why the duopoly exists. I have family that have very strong feelings on both sides, and having grown up being in the middle of that, I think I've learned to play devil's advocate a little bit and kind of try to figure out how to navigate that environment. But also it drove me to question, how do we change that? How do we sow that divide? And over the years that I have been politically active, I think you always ask the question, why? And that drives you deeper down the rabbit hole of something that's more structural, more, should I say, infrastructural, more about how we vote and how candidates win elections has a lot more to do with the outcomes of the surface level things that we see. We see a political divide, yes, but a lot of it can be accounted for by the way that candidates have to campaign and the way that they have to represent themselves or even speak about their opponents. And I think ranked choice voting brings a level of nuance into that discussion that is missing, right? I think when candidates only have to, when they're talking to their base, their goal isn't to win the majority of votes in most cases. Their goal is to just beat their opponent. And so that drives the dialogue more towards how do I win? How do I share what my candidate is doing wrong? And so you get this battle that naturally occurs. So when a candidate has to win the majority of votes, that dialogue shifts tremendously. A candidate now has to reach to a broader constituency and figure out ways to reach across there. So you can't just say, if you're a Democratic candidate, you can't just speak badly about the Republican Party as a whole, which is generally the kind of language that we use today in political discourse, because that naturally drives away even moderates who are maybe perhaps just a little bit right-leaning.
We should probably add that this is proven by experience. We're not just theorizing that, oh, well, everything's going to be great if you just do what we say. No, actually, ranked choice voting is being has been adopted, we know, in Maine, just now in Alaska, but also in a number of cities, including the St. Louis, the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, I believe. And what people find is that the elections are much more civil because nobody wants to alienate anybody, because the voter might not be their first, the candidate might not be the voter's first choice, but might be that voter's second choice. So you don't want to run a negative campaign against their first choice, or they'll get turned off and not make you their second choice. So it makes for a more positive campaigning, which is what we need right now, really.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think there's over 9 million people represented by ranked choice voting now, not necessarily on a statewide level, but including statewide and local elections. Yeah. I think there's over 9 million people that are represented by a ranked choice voting system.
Yeah, and it's growing.
And it's growing. Yeah.
There's a number of initiatives in other states.
I forget the number. I think Fair Vote has a number, but I think there's over 50 bills, I think, on plate for just this year. So.
Yeah.
And then Maine showed a good example of what can happen with ranked choice voting. I can't recall who the candidates were at this point, but it was 2018. And the first round finished with one guy on top. And then after the process played through, he ended up not winning. And that just showed, he didn't speak. He spoke to his base, but he couldn't get anybody else outside of that base. And that's exactly what ranked choice voting does, is it helps get it out to a broader audience. And I like the point that you made, Ken, because that kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit when people talk about ranked choice voting, and that's just how people campaign. So with ranked choice voting, you're never going to hear, or you shouldn't hear, a candidate, disparaging the supporters of another candidate. So you're not going to hear, somebody that's running for an office calling supporters radical, or what was the one that deplorables. You're not going to get any more of that stuff anymore, because you might need those votes.
Sure.
So you're going to have to speak to them, and you're going to have to campaign that way, and not just zero in on your target base and hope that's enough, or hope that the other person is worse. There's no more of that. Vote for me because have you seen the other person? Because now there might be 2, 3, 4, 5 other people. So what are some of the other benefits kind of ranked choice voting?
One, can I jump in here? One that I see is, I think we often frame it in terms of general elections, but I think there's benefits in primaries as well. I think today we see both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party being internally very split. Democratic Party is split up by folks who voted for Bernie, who are probably perhaps much more progressive than more moderate, traditional Democrats. And so there's an internal divide, and so ranked choice voting helps those parties truly figure out where their center is. And same for a Republican Party, right? You have folks who voted for Trump, very distinct from maybe what I would call like old school conservatives. So these parties can kind of help find their center when they use ranked choice voting. They figure out, okay, really, what is our platform, and how is our platform formed around the people's votes, as opposed to here's our platform, you take it or leave it. I think that's really what we have today. I think there's a lot of conservatives who didn't support Trump that felt that they couldn't speak out against him because that was speaking out against their own party. But if their constituents, if their voters can vote with their conscience, that rises up to the surface, and the candidates that are elected in the primaries and eventually go on to general elections truly represent the majority of the people, even within their party, not just the general public.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that adopting ranked choice voting will allow more different voices to be heard. It will basically, there's 3 basic selling points, I think. First, the one that Ken mentioned, you don't win until you get a majority. It's more democratic, by all means. Secondly, it does away with the spoiler effect, which we just mentioned, so that people don't blame the third parties for losing an election. Thirdly, for the same reason, it does away with the argument that you're wasting your vote to vote third party. So people can vote their conscience without having to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. They can vote their first choice, and then they can vote for the lesser of 2 evils as their second choice. And as Ken mentioned, it can go, if you have multiple candidates, you can vote for as many, or you can rank as all those candidates if you want to. It should result in more voices being heard, which is going to and it's going to be more civil, as we just said. So it means we're going to have a discussion on issues where there's not just two points of view, a pro and a con, but there's a little more subtlety to the argument, to the discussion, and that just will result in more civility, which we need.
Now, when you all talk to people about ranked choice voting, do you ever get any kind of pushback, any criticisms? If so, what is that, and how do you respond to it?
Well, I get some. I think part of it is that we haven't explained it right. I've got one Facebook friend, Republican, who just, every time I mention it, he says, the only democratic way is to vote one time for one candidate, and anything else is not democratic. And I just haven't explained it to him yet. You still only get one vote. Ultimately, it's only going to count towards one candidate, but it's going to count if your first choice isn't viable, then it will count towards the
Arguably,
second
it's
choice
more
system.
Democratic.
Absolutely.
Because now you're truly representing the
Yeah.
majority as opposed to
Yeah.
a plurality system or a winner-take-all
It's
system.
absolutely more democratic.
I mean, if somebody wins with, say, 39% of the vote, that means there's 61% of the people didn't vote for that person. So are they going to get represented? Probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a problem. I think John's absolutely right. I think when most people understand it, because I think ranked choice voting, the phrase sometimes comes off as a little bit more complex than it really is. It's a simple change to how you vote. It's a very simple ballot change. So I think the goal that we have ahead for our organization is to really educate people fundamentally. What is it? How does it work? It's simple. It's a very simple change, but it has drastically great benefits to every voter. But that's really the challenge is opposition by default. It's just people don't understand it. They're not familiar with it, and therefore
It's like fish in the water, you know. They've grown up with this two-party system. They think it's normal. They think that any deviation from that is just not American.
Right.
Yeah, I think people see it as risky too. Like they think that to play around with our voting system is too risky. It's going to challenge our democracy, and it's really not that big of a change. And it's been, as you said earlier, it's been shown proven effective in multiple districts.
And it's just an elaboration of runoff votes, which we've had
Yes.
runoff elections for some time in different jurisdictions, but we don't have them uniformly. So we do sometimes debate whether we should call it instant runoffs instead of ranked choice voting. Pros and cons to each one, but it's a reasonably simple idea that people can understand if they just think about it. We've got to get the message out and make them encourage them to think about it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, electoral reform is not really like a sexy topic or a hot topic that really draws a lot of attention. So, I think a lot of candidates, even if they support it, it's not something they campaign on. I think that's changing. I think that's definitely changing. But I think in the past, it wasn't a hot button topic that could really draw a lot of attention to themselves.
And that's it. And I try to tell people, people are very passionate about, a multitude of different policies that are out there, but without a proper election system, the chances of those things actually happening are pretty slim. Mm-hmm. So we have to definitely strengthen our election system as well as our media, which is another topic for another day.
Oh, we can do that.
But if we can solidify those two things, then we can get other policies for the people. That'll just come naturally, I believe. So before we get into Kentuckians for ranked choice voting, I'm sure people are kind of asking, what's the status of ranked choice voting in Kentucky? Has anybody been working on this or anything? So for those that don't know, I've actually tried to work on this with my state senator, who is Morgan McGarvey. We had an election integrity package scheduled to roll out this January. That include ranked choice voting was the main thing. It had open primaries, it had publicly counted paper ballots, and it had redistricting in one package. And this was going to be rolled out in January. And then the elections happened in November, and the Democrats took some bad losses. And basically, they had a meeting. They freaked out. They've decided not to push this bill at all now. It's gone. They're more focusing on other things with elections, such as making the mail-in balloting permanent, which I'm not opposed to, but I feel like ranked choice voting is the priority, and we need to prioritize that before we fill in the gaps on some other election issues. So that's dead in the water now. But thankfully, you guys are here, and you're starting to work. So now we have another avenue to go through. And the last thing I'll say on that is feel free to call and text Morgan McGarvey and let him know that you want ranked choice voting. Let him know that you want that election integrity package. Just make him aware that's if you want to win elections, this is what you need to do. But so let's get into Kentuckians for ranked.
Rolf, while we're on the subject, I believe Senator
Stephen Meredith.
Stephen Meredith has introduced a bill this year.
This was just a couple of days ago, right?
In the legislature for ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
And just glancing at it, I haven't studied, but it looks like a real solid bill. Like it's pure.
I think it's the language I saw was it's just looking to enact ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Was he in touch with you all on this at all? Did he work with you all on this at all?
No, this was of his own volition. I think the message that we received, I think, is that his intent was to just bring this in front of the General Assembly. I don't know that he thinks that it's going to go anywhere immediately. But
not this year. This is kind of priming the pump, I think. So it's sort of an educational step. It's going to put it in front of the public so we can be discussing it and talking about it. So hopefully our group can help that process.
But I do want to be clear. Like, Kentuckians for ranked choice voting, our mission is not related to any advocating or campaigning on behalf of any candidate or any piece of legislation. Like, our primary goal out of the gate is education. I think that we talked about we have to overcome the fact that a lot of people don't know what it is, and I think that's the first step before you can expect any politician to want to jump on this bandwagon. Is people have got to be asking for it. People, as you said, you got to be calling in or writing emails or sending letters saying, hey, this is what I want. And I think once we build that momentum, we'll start seeing more and more bills coming out in support of it. But I think that we do have to tailor our message. And the other thing to point out is that Stephen Meredith is Republican, right? So and it's clearly there's bipartisan support for this kind of electoral reform. So I think it's just building the momentum behind it.
And that's the great thing about pushing ranked choice voting is this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This isn't a third-party independent issue. This is something that benefits everybody. It benefits voters across the spectrum. So there's no reason for any group really to be against this. It's good for democracy, and it's good for the country. So Kentuckians for ranked choice voting. How did that come about?
We'll have to put our heads together to figure it out. It actually was started by Gary Yaris, I believe, who is a left-of-center Democrat, I believe. And Gary, it's just a combination of things that I was introduced to Gary by a young man, Nathaniel Gregory, who's I think still in high school, and Gary and I hit it off and decided we seemed like we were a balanced team, so we met a week or two, and then he had to drop out, but Stephen Katz came in. He's a DSA person, I believe, Democratic Socialists of America. So we've tried to keep it nonpartisan and try to draw in people with different affiliations so that it doesn't appear to be partisan in any way. Gary, I believe, coined the term, I think, and then an organization called Rank the Vote in Massachusetts, that had been working on adoption in Massachusetts, they organized, I guess, to bring it to all the states, and so they got in contact with Gary, I believe, and they've been a great deal of assistance to us in advising us on grassroots organizing, something I knew nothing about. So
yeah, absolutely. I do want to shout out to Rank the Vote. So I'm not sure what they're primarily focused on right now, but I think they're trying to build a national coalition of all the different states. So they co-advise not only our group, but also a number of other ranked choice vote groups throughout the nation.
Yep.
I'm not sure how many there are, but there's quite a few.
Yeah.
So we held a few organizational meetings, or planning meetings, I should say, and then had an official launch at the end of the 21st of January, I guess it was. And boy, tell us about that, Ken. That was quite a...
Yeah, so I think that was actually what got me part of this organization. Was they held I actually wasn't involved until that point. There was an initial launch party on Zoom, of course, and essentially how that worked was there was an introduction to ranked choice voting. what the benefits are, much like we've discussed already. And then everyone kind of said, how do you want to get involved? What is it that you can bring to the table? What kind of skills do you have? And we kind of broke out into different groups based on how our organization is sort of split itself. So, we have a fundraising group, we have a policy group, we have art and media. So we have the different groups that do different functions as part of our organization. And
so anybody that wants to get involved,
absolutely,
we got work for you to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a volunteer-run organization, at least for the foreseeable future.
And let me say, just a handful of us doing the planning for that meeting, and 50 people showed up for the meeting, which completely blew me away. I'm not used to Zoom meetings, but 50 people in a room would be a lot, but 50 people on Zoom, I was just, and they were not just watching, they were participating.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that was neat. And I think Rank the Vote helped us organize that meeting, because breaking up into groups really helped get people involved, so they didn't kind of sit back and say, "Oh, I might get involved," but they're involved.
Yeah, I think that was key. That's how I was, like, I wouldn't say roped in, but I was trying to look for a way to get involved, but I had no intention of taking on this level of ownership or participation. And they really advocated for, if you're here and you want it, do something about it, like walk the talk. So
yeah.
I think that's kind of the format that we'll have in our monthly meetings going forward, is to do those kinds of breakouts and let people figure out where they might be able to fit in with their skill sets and contribute to the organization.
And it was neat that we had people from all over the state. We have quite a few people from universities. I think that when they get involved, they understand the issue and how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, very encouraging.
So what's the next step for the organization? Are you just building ranks and doing the Zoom meetings, or what do you all have planned right now?
I would say there's 3 main strategies that we're focusing on right now. I think first and foremost is building our support base, whether that's people who just want to advocate on our behalf, just maybe amongst our friends and family, actual volunteers, people who want to step up to the plate and contribute to our organization and help us grow, and this is our second part of our strategy, is every organization has to have funds in order to operate. We have expenses, so we have to afford those, and so donations is going to be a big part of it, is reaching out to people saying, hey, if you really support our movement, please think about contributing some level of funds, whatever is comfortable for you, right? This is going to be a grassroots movement, so initially we're going to be reaching out to individuals for their financial support, and then just the third pillar of our strategy is just education, just making sure people understand what ranked choice voting is. As we grow, our reach will grow, and then the whole central mission for our organization is the educational aspect of just letting people understand what the benefits are of ranked choice voting.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you guys have put this together and are working on this. It's like such a core issue for me, so it makes me happy to see you guys doing this work. And I'll definitely be trying to support you all where I can.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rolf.
So anything else about the organization you want to tell people?
What I would say is, if you're interested, if you want to get involved, we are working on our website currently, so the best way to reach out to us is to go onto our Facebook page, Kentuckians for Ranked Choice Voting. You should be able to search for it. It should be easily identifiable.
Real quick, I'll have that in the header too as well, so you all can find that link there.
And then if you really are committed to getting involved in volunteering, please plan to attend our next statewide Zoom meeting, which is going to be March 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There, like we talked about the format, we'll do breakouts, we'll explain what we're about, we'll do some breakout rooms. And then I think I'll also provide you, if you wouldn't mind posting the donation link, I'll send you our Square page, Square portal.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll post it. So.
Absolutely, thank you.
And we'll put it in the comments here as well when I get it, but I'll do a separate post for it as well.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, anything you want to add, John?
No.
Or not just the organization, but ranked choice voting in general. Is there anything that we've missed? Anything else people need to know?
Regarding the way the organization has gone since it started. I've been involved in a lot of civic activities, civic groups, but I haven't seen this much enthusiasm until now. I really think that it's just a matter of kind of coordinating that enthusiasm and continue to educate. But we've hit a nerve. I think people understand that this is an important issue.
It's time. I mean, people are sick of the duopoly. They're sick of, feeling like a hamster on a wheel. You just keep running, but you don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
And this seems like the best solution. And on top of that, it's the solution with the most momentum currently. So,
yeah.
I think it is the way to go.
Yeah. We can say that, we can appeal to the major parties because we do away with the spoiler effect of elections, and we can appeal to independents and third parties because we're giving them more of a voice in elections. They'll be more viable in an election. So there's something for everybody there. But yeah, we can't really put it off. We just had a march on the Capitol, folks. We've had the dysfunction is just way too bad. We've got to do something. It's becoming urgent.
I totally agree. Yeah. Anything else?
I would just say that, we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. So,
Nice.
We're responsible for shaping those tools, and electoral reform is one of the key areas that we actually have an opportunity as voters to really change how our candidates operate and how our government functions. So, first we have to change the tools, and then ultimately those tools will come back and help us shape a better future. So.
Awesome. All right. See, we got one comment here. Read out. Let's see what we've got. This is from Joe. This is, why do we have to have voting just by mail-in or going to the building? We should be able to vote by phone or computer, and we should have more candidates than just two. So this ranked choice voting will definitely help with that second part. Do you all have any opinion on voting by computer or phone or anything?
I think it's a matter of trust here. I don't think we're ready for that because people don't trust. There was significant distrust of this past election, and so we've got to build that trust. People are still questioning the machines that counted the ballots. We've got to explain to people how those machines work. I think they're not as sophisticated as people think. They're just simply sensing places on the paper to where a vote is supposed to be. And if you don't adjust those points correctly, of course, it's not going to count the votes correctly. But that is all audited, and there shouldn't be any reason to question it. You should be able to test every one of those machines. You should have multiple parties testing it so that nobody questions the integrity of our election system. Yeah, I think ultimately,
long term, right?
Long term, people will trust the internet and will work out new systems for encryption and ensuring the integrity of online voting. But we're not there yet. We shouldn't even.
I think that's a good point, though. I think ranked choice vote is a step towards that direction. So I think I may be wrong here, but I think a lot of the distrust that we have in our election systems doesn't come necessarily because wrong things happen, but because people saw the results and they said, that doesn't represent me. That doesn't represent who I am. These candidates don't represent me. And I think ranked choice voting allows people to vote their conscience, and then they will effectively see a transition towards candidates who maybe weren't their first choice, but are closer to who they are. And that will inherently build trust in our electoral systems, which could lead to, I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong, but I will say it could eventually lead to more trust in the voting systems, the technology that we have, and could lead to things maybe like voting online.
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking I'm going to write an app. There are some apps that let you do ranked choice voting online. The appropriate place, situation for that would be for maybe a private club or group that wants to hold elections online, so people can become familiar with it. But we don't
There's
have
actually a good example of how you can even use ranked choice voting amongst your friends. Like, I think it might have been the Better Ballot Indiana that came up with the video. I forget who created the video, but it was basically like, imagine you're going out to, you're ordering food with your friends and you can't agree on what you want to order. So you're going to order through Uber, but somebody wants fried chicken, somebody wants vegan, somebody wants soup, somebody, and so you could, there's a couple apps out there, I think, that do allow you to do ranked choice voting amongst your friends. So you could do that, and if it were the plurality system that we have today, it would only represent perhaps, 40 to 45% of what people want, but or less, right? But, so I think encouraging people to use ranked choice voting even in their everyday activities, whether that's in your organization, your business, even with your friends, I think getting in the mindset of using it would help people adjust the paradigm.
Yeah. You bring up a point there. The nature of our system is not majority rules, it's plurality rules. That's wrong. But to bring that home, I guess, there's quite a number of primaries where people win their nomination with less than 40%, in the 30s, and quite possibly, if you have 10 people in a primary field or 10 people running for any office, somebody could win theoretically with 11% of the vote, not Democratic.
Right.
So, and you're going to see, third parties are coming on strong because people are getting tired of the two parties. So you're going to see more and more elections that where people are saying, "Wait now." There more and more elections where the winner does not have a majority, and people are going to be questioning. So this is the time to go to instant runoffs and ranked choice voting.
Real quick, I want to address part of Joe's comment there and your responses. I don't know much about voting by phone, so I don't really have an opinion on that. But when it comes to voting on the internet, I do not support that at all at this moment because it's too easily hacked. But the solution to that would be a blockchain based. That cannot be hacked and is fully transparent, and I would support something like that. But as it stands with just basic internet technology, I hope, I really would like to keep our elections away from that because I would have a hard time trusting that. And as far as the trust issues that you speak about that people have with elections, and that just comes from a lack of transparency, and that's a whole nother thing that, when we have voting machines with proprietary software, people can't see what's going on. We have conventions where 11-year-old kids are hacking into these machines in 10 minutes or less. So we need, if they can do these voting machines in a way that's not proprietary, in a way that we can see what's going on, people would have faith in them because they may work properly. But when you have an air of secrecy about it, people are going to wonder, and some people are going to do more than wonder. They're going to assume that it is nefarious, and that possibility will remain open. So that's something to think about there. Comment from Melanie here. A couple comments. She says, will you all speak at the Metro Council meeting? Give the 3-minute elevator speech on the topic at Metro Council. Do you know any Metro Council representatives that currently support it? And she also recommends bumper stickers and t-shirts. We need walking advertising. What about, have you all worked on this locally at all? Do you know anybody on the council or anything?
We're just getting
I would say, we're just getting started. I think that would be a good path forward. We definitely need more volunteers to help us because we currently, our membership is relatively small, but it's also spread out. Right, we're here in Louisville, but we have members from all over the state: East Kentucky, West Kentucky, South Kentucky, North Kentucky. Our volunteers are everywhere, and so as individuals within our own communities, we can only do so much. So we really need people to come and join our ranks.
One of our teams is a speakers bureau too.
Yes. So we do have a team that's responsible for reaching out to folks.
So we're planning on that. We just haven't
we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah.
That's something I'd be willing to help, is if to organize maybe a Metro Council meeting where multiple people sign up to speak. maybe I could come in and live stream that as well, if they'd let me. Can be sketchy with that sometimes, but maybe, a concerted effort where it's just not one person for 3 minutes, but we just come in there with a line of people and just say, hey, it's not just this one person, we all want it. So, it's something to think about there.
I think we're, again, going back to, I think our core goal is the educational part. So like letting people understand ranked choice voting and letting that grow organically, so that folks who do support it don't necessarily have to be volunteers within our organization, but they may take initiative on their own. And grow movements within their own smaller communities. So I think that's really the driver for us is just getting the word out there, letting people understand what ranked choice voting is, and it's overall.
I agree about the bumper stickers and T-shirts. That's
the merchandise will come.
yeah.
All right. I don't think I have any more questions online or anything. Last words before we get out of here. Anybody have anything?
Thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, you're doing a great service, Wolf.
Yeah, we're definitely starting off and trying to start a movement and try to figure out how to move forward from here. But again, if anybody wants to join us, Kentuckians for Ranked Choice Voting on Facebook, please attend our Zoom meeting on March 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right. So, get this camera back on me here. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Share this out to your friends, family, all your groups on Facebook. We need to spread the word. Click that link in the header and check out Kentuckians for Ranked Choice Voting and tell them your support. Feel free to volunteer with your time, your money, both, whatever. Contact your lawmakers as well. Let them know you support this, especially if you're here, your state senator is Morgan McGarvey. Let him know. Hit him up on the phone, send him an email, put that pressure on. Otherwise, John, like I said, John's been on the show before. Check out that episode with John. I don't remember the episode number on that. I think it was in the 20s.
Yeah, it was 20, I think.
Was it 20? Yeah, it was right around there.
I got a bookmark.
Yeah, and then episode 50, my previous episode, we did the round table and we discussed ranked choice voting there for a while with the group, including Jeff Sebesta, who's also a member of Kentuckians for Ranked Choice Voting. Resources, check out Fair Vote. You mentioned
Rank the Vote would be another one.
Rank the Vote.
Yeah.
Another national group that works on election integrity and ranked choice voting is Represent Us. Check them out. They're nonpartisan as well. I think that's all the ones I can think of right now. So yeah, check out all those resources. Thank you all so much for watching. We've got some things coming up in the next week or two, so there might be a brief pause for my next episode as I get some things situated. But yeah, follow, like, share, comment, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Press all those appropriate buttons. And until next time, always think critically.
Very good.